welcome back to my channel. My name is Marilyn Bruce. Today I'll be working on this sugar daddy robe for a client for her maternity shoot. The inspiration was from Pinterest. So before I get into it, I want to say a very big thank you to all of you for your engagement on my last video. I've seen all your comments, your requests and your complaints. I'm going to do my best to fulfill all your requests, and about my videos being too fast, I promise to work on it. So let's get straight into it. I used 60 yards of tulle for this particular robe. You can use more or less depending on how much volume you want, and I also use Lycra for the inner base. All the materials that I used are in the description box, so you can go ahead and check them out for more details. First, you need to draft your pattern on the brown paper, and that is what I'm about to do. But I am extending the brown paper because the length that I'll be using for the robe is 70 inches. My brown paper is way shorter than that, and that is why I'm extending it. So I used 70 inches for the front and then 85 inches for the back because I wanted the whole train something going on at the back. Yeah, and I'll be using just the normal basic bodice block for this pattern, nothing extra. I just measured my 70 inches, marked it down, and I'm going to be cutting off the excess so I can have exactly 70 inches as the length of my brown paper. Also, I just drafted one pattern and I'm going to be using this pattern to cut both the front and then the back of the net. If this is going to confuse you, I advise you to draft two patterns, one for the back and then one for the front. But since I know what I'm doing, I'm just using one pattern because I know how to go about this and I know how to cut the front from the back or cut the back from the front. Here I just marked her cross front, which was 15, and I'm squaring that line down so I can have my armhole. But before I continue that, I'm going ahead to mark the shoulder to nipple, shoulder to waist, shoulder to hip, and then the full length. So her shoulder to nipple is 12, shoulder to waist is 18, and from the shoulder to her hip is 25. So you're just going to mark those lines and then you're going to use those lines to draft your pattern. Yeah, so this is just a normal bodice block. There's nothing extra, there's nothing new. The only thing is I extended the armhole. So the normal armhole is 8 inches. For her measurement is 8, but I extended it down to about 10 inches because of the nature of the robe. Yes, so that the armhole doesn't feel so tight. It has to be very loose, like, yeah. So that's the only difference. And the as you can see, I'm just marking the front. So I'll use this pattern to cut the back. You know, the back neckline is different from the front neckline. That's why I said if it's going to confuse you, you can just draft two different patterns. But also, in order for you to save your brown paper or not waste your brown paper, that is why I'm just going ahead to do it this way, because there's going to be wasted of brown paper if you are supposed to draft two different patterns. Yeah, so with the bottom part, I extended it to the very last, I think it's about 40 inches. Yeah, because it has to flow, it has to be like a mermaid style. So that was what I did, and I just extended it from the waistline to that side. Sorry if you can't see what I'm doing. My brown paper was super long and it was very difficult for me to adjust the camera to capture the whole thing, but what I'm doing is super simple, and if you watch what I'm doing, I assure you're going to understand. You just dropped your normal body block and then you extend it from the hip line to the length that you want. So it can be 70, it can be 80, depending on how long your client wants it. Then you connect it from the waist to that length. So that is what I just did. So with the hem part, I made it slightly mermaid. You don't want to make this part like so wide, because when it's time for you to sew the ruffles on it, you're going to regret it if you make it so wide, because it's going to take a lot of ruffles, and the ruffles are very difficult. Like, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience, and if you don't have that, you're just going to regret it. So I made mine not so wide and not so small. Like, it was just moderate. So I think that's what you should go for. And also with the back, I added more for the back, so I think it was okay for me. I got 60 yards of this tulle or net, as some people call it. This is champagne gold. I forgot to mention it earlier. So what I'm doing here is, because the 60 yards is like way too long for me to handle like all together, I'm just dividing them into 5 yards each. So in all, I had about 12. Yeah, I had about 12 cut pieces, and that was like way easy for me to handle. So you can do that as well, so your work becomes easier. Yeah. One element that you need to be able to have a successful work done when you're working with tulle is patience. You need lots and lots of patience when you're working with tulle, because it can be very annoying, it can be very stressful, and working on tulle alone can just throw you off into depression mode. Yes. So you just need to take your time, relax, and just have fun working with it, because if you don't, you're just going to end up being frustrated working on just one robe. Yeah, so this robe actually cost, I've checked on websites, I've seen prices, and working on this on myself, I understood why it cost much, because one may say, okay, it's just net, so why does it cost much? Yeah, it takes a lot of work. Here I'm just figuring out how to place the pattern in order for me to not waste it, one, and also be able to cut both the front and the back from the same sides, like opposite each other. So that is what I'm doing now, and I'm just going to pin it down. You always have to pin it down, and as you can see, I have placed heavy objects on the corners of the net, because my fan was on and it kept on, because it's very light, it's very lightweight. The fan keeps on, moving the net, and it will stress you out. So you just need to secure it with heavy objects, and you can also pin it as well, so that you don't stress yourself. I just did one layer of this. So normally you can do 2 layers or 3 layers, if you don't want it to be so transparent, but this is going to be for a maternity shoot. She wants her belly to show, so I just did one layer. So you can just double your layers, as many as you want or as many as you can, but I just did one layer for my client. Because I had a little extension at the back for the tail, I wasn't able to cut it on fold. Yeah, so you don't necessarily have to cut the back on fold. I used a serger or knitting machine to sew the entire robe instead of using the sewing machine and then coming back to serge or knitting the raw edges. This saves you a great amount of time. Time to cut your tulle for your ruffles, and with this part you need extra patience. Reason being that you're going to be folding your tulle in a way that you can cut your strips of triangles for the ruffles. So you need to make sure that your folded parts are matching, like they are together. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, but it should be okay for you to enable you to cut your strips. Yeah. After you are satisfied with how you folded your tulle, what you need to do next is to measure out the length of ruffle you want. So I'll be using 8 inches. So 8 inches is going to be for the ruffles at the bottom part of the robe, and then I'm going to be using 6 inches for the hand part. Yeah, so this is not like a standard measurement. This is what I just decided to use, so you can use whatever measurement you want. So after marking it out, I'm just going to cut it and use what I've cut to cut the other ones. So I'm going to be cutting all 50 yards left, and all the 50 yards is going to be used for the ruffles. Yeah. My work was made super easier and super faster with the help of this ruffling foods that I got in town. I think it would be advisable for each one of you to get one. It's very helpful. So I doubled mine too. So I didn't ruffle this on just one toe. I just made it double so I could have more volume. So you can make yours triple, or you can still maintain the double. But making it single will make your work more difficult because you'd have more work to do. But I doubled mine, and at least it reduced the work that I had to do, and it made me get more volume. Yes. I'm stitching on the middle to create the ruffle, so that is where you have to stitch in order to get your ruffles in the middle. The making of the ruffles is the hard work part. You need a lot of time, you need a lot of patience. Mine took me about 5 to 8 hours approximately, and this ruffles that I was making was just for the bottom part, and it took me the whole day to complete both the sleeves and the front part of ruffles. Yeah, so like I said, the ruffles take a lot of time and you need patience. I'm stitching the ruffles to the bottom part of the robe. I left 2 inches allowance on the robe, and the ruffles is just going to cover that part off, so you're not going to see the rough edges. So what I did is, after stitching the center part of the ruffles, I just folded it into two, or I just flipped it over, and I'm stitching right on the edge. You need to stitch this as closely to the edge as possible, and it has to be as neat as possible. As you stitch ahead, you just straighten it out with your hands, and once you run out of one ruffle, you can just overlap it with a new one and you're good to go. So you're going to be doing this till you run out of your tulle. Once you get to the end, you're going to start all over again, and you're going to be doing this all around, one layer after one layer. And I left about 2 inches space interval between the first and the second, so you're going to go around as many layers as you can. This is the kind of effect you should have after you're done stitching the ruffles all around. With mine, I went round it about 6 times. Yeah, so I have about 6 layers of ruffles all around. You should apply the same method to your sleeves, and then you're good to go. So the method I used for cutting my sleeve is the bell sleeve method. I just used a little bit of flare because I didn't want so much flare. Like I said, the more flare you have, the more ruffles it's gonna take, so you need to take note of this. Here I'm done attaching the ruffles to my sleeves, and the next thing is I'm measuring where I want the front one to start from, and I'm going to pin them down, and I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I'll stitch it down as well. So after pinning everything down and being satisfied with where you want the ruffles to start from the front, you're basically going to use the same method you use for the bottom part. So you're just going to fold the ruffles into two and then stitch the edge just like you did for the bottom part. There's no difference in stitching the front. It's just the same method for the front, the sleeves, and then the bottom part, if that makes sense. So this is the final look of the robe. I went ahead and I used the same tool to create a little belt for her so she can tie around her waist if she wants to. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. It came out exactly as I imagined, as I wanted it. Yeah. So I made a bralette and the shorts for my client since she's going to be changing. I added a little bit of silver applique since the robe also had that detailing in it. I didn't want to leave the robe so simple because it looked so raw and we are not going for any basic looks. Yeah, and adding that brought out, more beauty to the robe. So this is the final look, guys. I'm going to share pictures and videos on my Instagram page if my client sends me pictures. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, you have any comments, any complaints, you can leave them in the comment section and I'll get back to you. I hope you learned something, and if you haven't subscribed yet, kindly subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.